Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate this hearing. I hope that we can find 21st century solutions to 21st century challenges. I think the one thing about the television marketplace is we've seen just remarkable improvements over time. It really is an area in which, with technology and all the change that's occurred out there, it's been I think, very good for most Americans. But obviously, there are issues that come up along the way that need to be addressed, and I think this committee needs to be informed by all of your input as we try and address that. And Senator Smith, welcome back. Nice to have you with us again here today. One of the things that I hear is that television blackouts due to disputes between providers and distributors are on the rise, and I think that everybody's sort of talked about, alluded to the various statistics that bear that out today, and are likely to increase if we retain the current regulatory regime for television. So the question, I ask this question as someone who believes in the free market, whose instincts are that deregulation is a good, solid, preferred approach. But I have this question, and that is, with regard to those types of blackouts, what is your assessment as to whether we're going to see fewer TV blackouts or more TV blackouts if we were to completely deregulate and to go to an approach like what Senator DeMint has proposed, his legislation? And I open that up to whoever. Senator.
Senator Thune, good to see you. As I said in my testimony, I think when you increase by 10 times the number of rights holders that would have to come to an agreement, you're apt to have a tenfold increase in the likelihood of disruptions of some kind. And that's just logical to me, but perhaps others have a perspective on that.
I think the other perspective that I would share is that part of the regulatory landscape that we're dealing here with the 92 Act requires cable operators to sell broadcast stations as a point of entry to purchasing anything else from us. And that is unlike any other platform. Satellite providers are not required to sell the broadcast stations. Certainly access to entry to viewing content, even broadcast content on the web, does not require that subsidy to be paid in order to be able to use any other form of content. And so part of the tension, I think, for the operator as these costs are skyrocketing is that we cannot sell a consumer anything else without being obligated by virtue of the privileges of this law to pay those broadcasters. And it is unique to cable. And it is placing greater and greater tension on our ability to compete and our ability to provide consumers with access to other content that they want without having to pay that toll to enter our store.
Senator Thune, if I may, I guess 2 points. As I said in my testimony, I guess my fear is, along the lines of what Senator Smith said, if you introduce more players, and some of these players are hard to find even, to clear the rights. So I fear that it's going to lead to many more disputes rather than fewer. But I guess I'd like to make a related point, if I may. I was in a situation last year in a negotiation where we were getting fairly close, and the FCC announced its proceeding, and the operator pulled back because he thought that he was on the verge of getting a better deal from Washington. And it's frustrating to me as a company. Our television stations, so CBS only negotiates for the stations we own. Our CBS O&Os cover 32% of the country, so that's 32 million television households, and I've been doing this for 6.5 years. We've done 100 agreements, including 2 with Ms. Abdullah and 1 with Ms. Whitmer. We haven't had blackouts, and so I almost don't recognize the environment in which I'm sitting because they're describing a world that doesn't exist amongst our 3 companies. So I guess my concern is I know that you're all worried about the current system. For a businessman who needs to make a plan, we invest $5.5 billion a year in programming. $5.5 billion a year. We need to be able to plan. We need to know what the rules are going to be. We know how this system works. It has its flaws, but it basically works. Abandoning it for some whole new system or a system that repeals retrans and leaves the compulsory license, I guess we prefer the devil we know.
Well, and two We all have something to say. Two things on that is that we may like this, some people may like the model that is for lots of reasons, but the consumers don't. And the consumers don't have that same model on the internet. It's time that the businesses that we're talking about create a new, sustainable, innovative business model that serves consumers and reduces confusion. That's one point. The second point is, I sure hope we don't evaluate the success of deals getting done based on blackouts, because that's not the only measure of success or failure. There is a failure in this fact that we have these double-digit, triple-digit increases that are not rationalized by ratings or anything else on many networks. They're not rationalized. We have to pass them through to consumers, and every year they take the brunt of that, of those increases. That's failure in my mind, because I can tell you the services that we do manage, internet and phone, we haven't taken those services up. We haven't taken an increase in years, and I can represent many ACA members who will tell you the same thing. Some that have not taken HSD or phone up for 10 years. Where are the price increases coming from? Programming on video.
Let me briefly follow up. We've testified together before. The only way to reform this market is to restore consumer sovereignty, is to make sure that consumers have the right to choose to pay for the programs they want. That is the fundamental problem in this marketplace. And you can fool around with retrans, you'll just shift the balance from one big entity to another big entity. The only way to break the market power is to ensure that the consumers have choices of what to pay for and not being forced to buy these huge bundles. That's what she wants, because she faces the consumer and she's willing to face consumer sovereignty. She doesn't have any market power. The big cable operators and the big broadcasters, content providers do have market power.
With all due respect, I have to cut that question off here because we're already 2 minutes and 20 seconds over it, and Senator Udall is waiting.